Welcome back. Let's understand how we can transform a XML based payload to JSON payload. According to our case study for update COVID case, we are going to send a XML payload. Let's see how we can transform this XML payload into JSON. As usual, we need to get this into a XML file. Then we can create the inbound metadata. In similar way, we can get the JSON payload into a JSON file. Then we load the outbound metadata. Before that, let me also show you some high level transformation. Assume we are getting this XML payload to our mule flow, whereas the target system also expecting same number of fields, even same hierarchy, even field name as same. During that time, we need not to do the mapping field to field. So simply let me drag and drop a transform message here, and over here I can keep this as a application/JSON, and I can bind the payload, the complete JSON payload. And the question comes, should we keep this open brace, close brace or not? If we keep this close brace and open brace, and if I write as payload, right, it will be errored out. We can see it is showing as error, because always the open brace, close brace expects the logic in key colon value pair. Suppose if I keep a key as temp, then this logic will be valid one. So either we can add another root element to this payload, or remove this open brace, close brace and keep as payload. With this, we don't need to keep any other extra key, whereas the target system was expecting in the same hierarchy, right? So we should not add another root element. Let's save it, and let me add a logger, then print the payload. Click on FX and print payload. Click on save. Let the application get redeployed. Application deployed. Let me make the request. I didn't add a breakpoint, but we can see, right, in the first logger we received the XML payload, and with this transform message we can see this has changed to the JSON payload. Then when we should go for low level mapping with respect to the field to field, if the target system was expecting few of the fields from this payload, or the target system was expecting the field names differently. Suppose the target system wants the case ID field as case-ID. Then during the time we should do the field level mapping in similar way that's shown in the previous video. And also when the hierarchy changes, suppose since it is a JSON payload, right, they don't want this root element, so they just want this object. During the time we can map this as payload dot that particular root element. So if I copy this COVID payload and keep here, let's save it, let the application deployed. Let me make the request, and we look at loggers. We received a XML payload, and we look the payload printed after the transformation. It has not came up with the root element. It given us the straight and forward JSON object. So this way we can do high level transformation. And coming to the low level transformation, as usual we need to define the inbound metadata. I have already taken this XML payload into a .xml file. So let's define metadata and give name as update COVID case metadata. Click on create type, choose it as XML and choose example let's browse that particular example. So here I have added update COVID case payload.xml. Click on open and we see the metadata has generated. Click on select. That will be populated at the left side and we see it has populated. Now for the outbound metadata, let's use the one we created in the previous session, that is register COVID case metadata, which is a JSON. Click on select and let's do field level mapping. So this should be source to source. It is asking you wanted to override the existing logic. Yes, though it will be overridden. Now case type to case type, first name to first name, last name to last name, phone to phone, email to email, and date of birth to date of birth, national ID to national ID, national ID type to national ID type. In similar way, we can map the address fields. Let's save it and let the application get deployed. Let me make the request. Click on send. And now we can see we received this XML payload and the JSON payload as formed according to the logic that we built in this transformation. So this way we do XML to JSON transformations. That's all about this session. Thank you. Happy learning.